The auction house floated in the cold darkness of space, a small station where the Galactic Reclamation Authority sold things that nobody wanted. Old ships, broken equipment, the forgotten remains of dead companies and abandoned colonies, had been coming here for 15 years, and he knew every trick in the business. He was a scrapper. He bought old ships, tore them apart, and sold the pieces. It was not a glamorous job. His hands were always dirty. His clothes always smelled like engine oil. But it was honest work, and it paid the bills. Today he sat in a plastic chair in the back of the auction room. The room was almost empty. A few other buyers sat scattered around, looking bored. The auctioneer, a tired woman with gray hair, read from her screen in a flat voice. Lot 7748. Transport shuttle 40 years old, engine needs repair. Starting bid, 5,000 credits. Nobody raised their hand. The auctioneer sighed and moved on. Looked at his tablet. He had been studying the auction list all morning, and most of it was garbage. Broken ships that would cost more to fix than they were worth. Old equipment that nobody needed anymore. But there was one item that caught his attention. Lot 7749, a Galactic cruiser. The listing was strange. Registry, unknown. Origin, unknown. Crew status, unknown. The only photograph showed a ship so dark it seemed to eat the light around it. The hull was covered in marks from old weapons that had never seen before. The ship looked ancient, pre-Federation ancient, maybe 300 years old, maybe more. Nobody was bidding on it. In fact, nobody was even looking at it. His partner sat next to him. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. They had been working together for 10 years, and she knew him better than anyone. "You're looking at that cruiser again," she said. "Stop." "It's interesting," said. "It's cursed," said. "Look at the listing. Unknown everything. That means trouble. That means problems. That means we lose money. Or it means opportunity. It means you're an idiot." The auctioneer's voice cut through their argument. Lot 7749, Galactic cruiser, pre-Federation design. Location, Sector 7, Debris Field Gamma. Starting bid, 1,000 credits. Looked around the room. Nobody moved. The corporate buyers were checking their tablets. The military surplus dealers were yawning. Even the desperate freebooters, the ones who usually bought anything with an engine, showed no interest. The silence stretched on. "No bids?" the auctioneer asked. She sounded surprised. Ships usually sold, even bad ones. 1,000 credits, anyone. Raised his hand. Grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" "Buying a ship." "You're insane." The auctioneer looked relieved. 1,000 credits from the gentleman in the back. Any other bids? Silence. Going once, going twice, sold. Put her head in her hands. "We're ruined." "We bought a cruiser for 1,000 credits, said. "That's the deal of a lifetime." "That's the mistake of a lifetime. Nobody else wanted it. Doesn't that tell you something?" "It tells me everyone else is missing something." The paperwork took 3 hours. The woman at the registration desk looked at like he was crazy. She asked him twice if he was sure. He said yes both times. She shrugged and handed him the ownership documents. Finding the ship took 2 weeks. Debris Field Gamma was a graveyard of old vessels, broken stations, and forgotten junk. The navigation was dangerous. Their small transport ship had to dodge floating metal and spinning wreckage. But then they saw it. The cruiser hung in the darkness like a sleeping giant. It was bigger than had expected, much bigger. The photograph had not shown its true size. It was at least 500 meters long with a design that looked nothing like modern ships. No curves, no smooth lines, just sharp angles and thick armor plates. "It's old," said, "really old." Pre-Federation agreed, "maybe older." "How is that possible? Humans only started building ships 400 years ago." Had no answer. They docked with the cruiser. The airlock was stuck at first but managed to force it open. Cold air rushed out, air that had been sealed inside for centuries. They stepped inside with flashlights in their hands. The darkness was complete. Their lights cut through it like knives, revealing corridors and walls and doors. Everything was made from a metal that did not recognize. It was black, but not painted black. The metal itself was black, like it had been made from shadow. "This is wrong," whispered. She was right, something was wrong, very wrong. There was no dust. In a ship this old, there should be dust everywhere. Decay, rust, the slow rot of time, but the corridors were clean. The walls were smooth. The air smelled stale but not rotten. Hal asked. They walked deeper into the ship. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. They passed rooms filled with strange equipment, screens that were dark, chairs that were empty. Everything was abandoned but preserved, like the crew had just left yesterday. But there was no crew, no bodies, no bones, no signs of life at all. "Where did everyone go?" asked. They searched for hours. The ship was a maze of corridors and chambers. They found living quarters with beds still made. They found a kitchen with empty plates on the tables. They found a medical bay with equipment they could not identify. But they found no people, not one. Finally, they reached the center of the ship. A large door blocked their path. It was made from the same black metal as everything else, but there were symbols carved into its surface. Symbols that glowed with a faint red light. Tried to open it, he pushed, he pulled, he looked for buttons or panels, nothing worked. "It's locked," he said. "Touch the symbols. These aren't any language I know, and I know most of them." They tried everything. Cutting tools, hacking devices, brute force. The door did not move. The symbols kept glowing, patient and silent. After 6 hours, they gave up. "We'll figure it out later," said. "For now, let's see what else we can find." They spent the night on the ship, sleeping in one of the abandoned quarters. Dreamed of fire. He dreamed of a world burning under an angry red sun. He dreamed of people screaming as their cities melted. He dreamed of ships fleeing into the dark, running from something terrible. He woke up sweating, his heart pounding. Was already awake, staring at him. "You look terrible," she said. "Bad dream." "About what?" Tried to remember. The images were fading, slipping away like smoke. "Fire," he said, "a burning world." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "This ship, it's doing something to you." "That's crazy." "Is it? You saw the auction. Nobody wanted this thing. Everyone stayed away. Maybe they knew something we didn't." Stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the debris field drifted slowly in the starlight. Broken ships and dead stations, the garbage of civilization. But his ship was not garbage. He could feel it now. The ship was special. It was waiting. It had been waiting for a very long time. And somehow, impossibly, it had been waiting for him. "We're not selling it," he said. Groaned, "I knew you were going to say that. There's something here, something important. I can feel it. Your feelings are going to bankrupt us." But even as she complained, could see the curiosity in her eyes. She felt it too, the mystery, the pull, the sense that they had stumbled onto something bigger than themselves. He looked back at the center of the ship, where the sealed door waited with its glowing symbols. Whatever was behind that door, he was going to find out, no matter how long it took. 3 months passed, and the door still would not open. Had tried everything. He hired hackers from the underground networks. They connected their machines to the ship systems and typed for hours. Their screens filled with error messages. The ship's code was nothing they had seen before. "This isn't technology," one hacker said. "This is something else, something we don't understand." He hired engineers from the best shipyards. They brought cutting tools and drilling machines. They worked for 2 days trying to break through the door. Their tools sparked and smoked. The door did not get a single scratch. "The metal is impossible," an engineer told him. "It's harder than anything we have. We can't even identify what it's made from." He even bribed a Federation archaeologist, a nervous man who specialized in ancient artifacts. The archaeologist studied the symbols on the door for a week. He took photographs. He made drawings. He compared them to every known language in the Federation database. "These symbols are old," the archaeologist said. "Very old, older than human." "How old?" asked. "I don't know, thousands of years, maybe more." "That's impossible. Humans only left Earth 400 years ago." The archaeologist shrugged. "I'm just telling you what I see." Wanted to give up. They had spent almost all their money on experts and equipment. The docking fees for keeping the ship in a safe orbit were eating what remained. Every day, they fell deeper into debt. "We need to sell it," she said. "Sell the parts we can reach. Forget about the door." "No. We're dying here. We have no money. We have no work. We have a ship we can't use and a door we can't open. Something is behind that door. Something important. Something important doesn't pay our bills." But could not let go. Every night he dreamed of the burning world. The dreams were getting stronger, more detailed. He saw faces now, people running, children crying, ships rising into a red sky. He started sleeping on the cruiser, in a small room near the sealed door. Sometimes he woke up standing in front of it, with no memory of getting out of bed. The ship was calling him, he was sure of it. One night came to check on him. She found him in the corridor, his hand pressed against the door, his eyes closed. She said, "This is not normal." He opened his eyes. "The door is warm." "What?" "Touch it." Hesitated, then placed her hand on the black metal. Her eyes widened. "It's warm. It shouldn't be warm. There's no power running to this section." "It's reacting to me," said. "I've been checking the power readings. Whenever I'm on the ship, the levels change. Small changes, but they're there." "That doesn't make sense." "None of this makes sense." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then said, "I know someone, a linguist. He studies dead languages, old stuff that nobody speaks anymore. Maybe he can help." The linguist's name was. He was a thin man with glasses and gentle eyes. He spoke quietly and moved slowly. He looked like someone who spent his life in libraries, surrounded by old books. But when he saw the cruiser, his eyes lit up. "Remarkable," he whispered. "The design, the proportions. This is not Federation work. This is not any civilization I recognize." Led him to the sealed door. Stared at the symbols for a long time without speaking. Then he pulled out a small camera and began taking photographs. "I need to study these," he said. "Give me time." Time was something they did not have much of, but agreed. Set up a small workspace on the ship. He covered the walls with photographs and notes. He compared the symbols to ancient scripts from Earth and from alien worlds. He muttered to himself in languages that did not understand. Days became weeks, grew more frustrated, but kept working. Finally, one morning, he called them to his workspace. His face was pale. "I found something," he said, "something disturbing." He pointed to a photograph of symbols from the door. "These are not random. They form words, sentences, a message." "What does it say?" asked. Picked up a notebook. His hands were shaking. "Most of it is warnings, danger, keep away, do not enter without permission." But one phrase repeats over and over throughout the entire ship. He read from his notes, "Only the children of the burning world may enter." A cold feeling spread through his chest. The burning world, his dreams. "What does that mean?" asked. "I did not know at first," said, "but then I found more inscriptions, hidden ones in the walls, in the floors, in places you would not normally look. They tell a story." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "The story says that long ago there was a great civilization. They lived on a world that orbited a dying sun, a burning sun. They knew their planet would be destroyed, so they built ships and fled into the darkness between stars. What civilization? Asked. Who were they? Looked at him with troubled eyes. The inscriptions use a word I have never seen before, but after much study, I believe I understand its meaning. What word? Human. The silence that followed was heavy. That's impossible, said. Humans come from Earth. We've always come from Earth. That is what we believe, said. That is what history tells us. But this ship is at least 3,000 years old. Its technology is far beyond anything humans have built, and its inscriptions say it was made by humans, for humans. Thought about his dreams, the burning world, the fleeing ships, the faces of people who looked just like him. Are you saying, he said slowly, that humans didn't start on Earth? I am saying that this ship seems to believe so. Whether it is true, I cannot say. Shook her head. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. But was not finished. There is more. The inscriptions mention something called the Watchers. They were guardians, left behind to protect the sleeper ships and wait for the day when humanity was ready to return. Return to where? Asked. To the stars, to their true home, to the civilization they left behind. That night dreamed again, but this time the dream was different. He was not watching the burning world from a distance. He was there, standing on its surface. The heat was terrible. The sky was filled with fire. A woman stood beside him. She had a kind face and sad eyes. You have come at last, she said. We have been waiting so long. Who are you? Asked. I am the last watcher, and you are the key. He woke up in front of the sealed door. His hand was pressed against its surface. The symbols were glowing brighter than he had ever seen them. And then, with a sound like a whisper, the door began to open. Light spilled out from the darkness beyond. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. He could hear calling his name somewhere behind him, but it sounded very far away. The door opened fully and stepped through. What he saw made him stop breathing. A chamber filled with light, machines that hummed with power, screens showing star maps of galaxies he did not recognize. And in the center, a glass pod. Inside the pod, a woman slept. She looked completely human. Her face was peaceful. Her chest rose and fell with slow breaths. She had been sleeping for a very, very long time. The screens around the pod flickered to life. Words appeared in the ancient language. Who had followed inside translated them in a shaking voice. Subject: I am Sira. Status: sleeping. Duration: 3,247 years. Awakening protocol: ready. Stared at the sleeping woman. 3,000 years. She had been asleep for 3,000 years, waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting for him. Wake her up, said. Looked terrified. Are you sure? We don't know what will happen. We don't know who she is. She's the last watcher, said, and I think she has answers. He pressed his hand against the pod's surface. The glass began to glow. The pod hissed as it opened. Cold mist spilled out and rolled across the floor. The machines around the chamber hummed louder, as if waking from their own long sleep. And watched in silence. None of them dared to move. The woman in the pod opened her eyes. For a moment she just stared at the ceiling. Her eyes were dark brown, warm but tired. Then she turned her head and looked at the three people standing before her. She spoke. The words were strange, flowing like water over rocks. Did not understand them, but something in his chest tightened. The language felt familiar, like a song he had heard in childhood and forgotten. Was already scribbling in his notebook. I recognize some of these sounds, he whispered. Give me time. The woman tried to sit up. Her movements were weak, her muscles stiff from centuries of sleep. Stepped forward and helped her. Her skin was cool to the touch. She looked at him. Then she smiled, a small and sad smile. She spoke again. This time caught a word, just one word, but it made his blood run cold. She had called him something, A name, a title. Keeper translated, she called you Keeper. The next 3 days were difficult. The woman, I am Sira, was weak and confused. Her body had forgotten how to move after so long in sleep. She needed help to walk, to eat, to drink. But her mind was sharp, very sharp. Worked without rest, building a translation system. He recorded everything Sira said. He compared her words to the inscriptions on the ship. Slowly, piece by piece, he began to understand. On the third day, Sira spoke her first words in a language they could understand. Her voice was rough, her accent strange, but the words were clear. How long, she asked. 3,000 years, told her gently. A little more. Sira closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. Too long, too long. What happened? Asked. Why were you sleeping? What is this ship? Sira looked at him. In her eyes he saw pain that stretched back centuries. You truly do not know. We found this ship at an auction. Nobody wanted it. Nobody knew what it was. Then the forgetting was complete. Sira's voice was bitter. They made you forget everything. That night when she was strong enough to sit up on her own, Sira told them the truth. Humanity, she explained, was not born on Earth. Thousands of years ago, humans lived among the stars. They had a great civilization that stretched across many galaxies. They built ships that could cross the void between stars in days. They created technology that could reshape planets, heal the sick, extend life for hundreds of years. But they were not alone in the universe. Something else lived in the darkness between galaxies. The humans called them the Hollow. Nobody knew what they really were. Some thought they were machines. Some thought they were creatures from another dimension. Some thought they were something worse. The Hollow had one purpose: to destroy. They came from nowhere and attacked without warning. They felt no fear, no mercy, no emotion at all. They simply killed. Planet after planet fell to them. Billions died. Humanity fought back. For centuries the war raged across the stars, and humanity was winning. Slowly, painfully, but winning. Then came the betrayal. Our own leaders turned against us, Sira said. The Hollow had learned to corrupt minds, to plant fear and suspicion. Our civilization fell from within, destroyed by paranoia and civil war. The survivors made a desperate choice. They could not defeat the Hollow while fighting each other, so they ran. They found a distant planet on the edge of a small galaxy, a young planet called Earth. They landed there. They hid. They destroyed their ships and erased their memories. They became primitive again, starting over from nothing. The Hollow thought we were dead, Sira said. That was the plan. Hide for generations, forget who we were, wait until the Hollow stopped looking. And the Watchers asked. 12 of us were left behind. We did not forget. We stayed awake, guarding the sleeper ships hidden across the galaxy, waiting for the day when humanity was ready to remember, to return. What happened to the others? Asked. Sira's face darkened. Dead, killed over the centuries, some by accident, some by enemies who still searched for us. I am the last. Had 1,000 questions, but one burned brighter than the rest. Why did the door open for me? Why do I dream of the burning world? Sira looked at him with something like wonder. Because you carry the old blood, the blood of the first families, the original builders, the leaders of our civilization. That's impossible. I'm a scrapper. I buy old ships and sell the parts. Your ancestors were kings among the stars. Their blood still runs in your veins even if you did not know it. The ship recognized you. It called to you. It opened for you. The weight of her words pressed down on shoulders. He was not ready for this. He had never wanted to be special. He just wanted to do his job and live his life. But history had other plans. In the following weeks, Sira grew stronger. She began teaching them about the ship's true capabilities. What they had seen was only a fraction of its power. The cruiser was not just a ship, it was an ark. Hidden in its depths were the seeds of human civilization's lost glory, weapons that could crack moons, shields that could survive the fire of a dying star, medical technology that could heal almost any wound, energy systems that could power a city for centuries. And there was more: coordinates. 12 locations, scattered across the galaxy. Each one held a cache of technology and knowledge, deliberately hidden for this moment. These caches were prepared for the awakening, Sira explained. When humanity was ready, the Keeper would find the ship, wake the last Watcher, and gather what was hidden. And then what? Asked. Then humanity would rise again, reclaim its heritage, and finally finish the war we started 3,000 years ago. But there was a problem, a very big problem. Sira's awakening had triggered a signal, an ancient beacon buried deep in the ship's systems. It had been designed to announce humanity's return to the stars. The signal had been sent before they could stop it. The Hollow will hear it, Sira said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were afraid. They will come. How long? Asked. Months, maybe a year. It depends on how far away they are, but they will come. They always come. Laughed. It was not a happy laugh. So let me understand this. We bought a cursed ship at a cheap auction. We woke up an ancient woman who tells us humanity is actually a forgotten star empire. And now we've accidentally invited an unstoppable enemy to destroy us all. Yes, Sira said, that is correct. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But was not listening to his complaints. He was looking at the star maps on the screens. 12 caches, 12 locations holding the weapons and technology humanity would need to survive. We need to gather them, he said. Before the Hollow arrive, we need to prepare. The Federation will want to know about this, said. They need to be warned. They won't believe us, Sira said. I have watched your Federation from my sleep. They are small, comfortable. They have forgotten what it means to fight for survival. They will not listen until the Hollow are burning their worlds. She looked at, it will fall to you, Keeper, to gather the caches, to wake humanity from its long dream, to lead them when the time comes. Wanted to refuse. He wanted to say that he was not the right person, that he was just a scrapper from the outer belt. But he thought of his dreams, the burning world, the screaming people, the ships fleeing into darkness. Those were not just dreams. They were memories, passed down through blood and bone, waiting for the moment when they would be needed. He looked at, and they had followed him into this madness. They had stayed when any sensible person would have run. Are you with me? He asked. Sighed, you know I am, even when you're being an idiot. Smiled, someone needs to translate. Turned to Sira, then we have work to do. The hunt for the 12 caches began the next morning. Word spread faster than had expected. Within weeks of leaving the debris field, rumors were flying across the galaxy. A strange ship had been found, ancient technology, a woman who claimed to be thousands of years old, wild stories about humanity's forgotten past. The Federation sent messages, polite at first, then demanding. They wanted to bring the ship to the capital. They wanted to study Sira. They wanted the technology. Ignored them. Corporations offered money, millions of credits, billions. They would buy the ship. They would buy Sira. They would buy anything he was willing to sell. Refused. Religious groups declared him either a prophet or a devil. Some said he was the chosen one, destined to lead humanity to glory. Others said he was a fraud, a liar spreading dangerous lies. Paid no attention. He had one focus, the caches. The first cache was hidden in an asteroid field near the edge of Federation space. It took 2 weeks to find, buried deep inside a rock that looked like 1,000 others. But when they cracked it open, they found a small room filled with weapons. The weapons were beautiful and terrible. They looked simple, like metal tubes with handles. But when Sira demonstrated one, it melted a boulder into nothing in less than a second. Star rifles, she said. Standard infantry weapon for our soldiers. One of these is worth more than your entire Federation fleet. The second cache was on a dead moon, hidden under miles of ice. It contained shield generators, devices that could protect a ship from almost any attack. The third cache held medical equipment, machines that could heal wounds in minutes, tanks that could regrow lost limbs. With each cache, their power grew, but so did the danger. The Federation stopped being polite. They sent warships to intercept Cruiser. They demanded his immediate surrender. Sierra activated the ship's full defensive systems. The Federation warship's weapons bounced harmlessly off the shields. Their captains stared in shock as their most powerful missiles exploded without causing any damage. "We do not want war," broadcast to the fleet, "but we will not surrender what belongs to humanity." The fleet retreated, but knew this was only the beginning. 6 months passed. They had gathered 8 caches, 4 remained. Then the news came. A colony on the outer edge of Federation space had gone silent. No communications, no ships, nothing. When a patrol finally arrived, they found the colony empty. 40,000 people simply gone. The buildings were still standing. The power was still running, but every human being had vanished. 2 days later, another colony went silent, then another. The Federation called it a mystery. They sent investigators. They made speeches. Sierra knew the truth. "The Hollow are here," she said. Felt his blood turn cold. "Already, you said we had more time." "I was wrong. They must have been closer than I thought. Watching, waiting." Reports flooded in over the following weeks. More colonies disappearing. Ships going missing. Strange objects seen in the void between stars. Objects that were black as night and moved without engines. The Federation finally understood what was happening. They called an emergency meeting of all member worlds. They mobilized their military. It was not enough. The first major battle happened above a planet called New Sol. A Federation fleet of 200 ships faced a hollow armada. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the Federation fleet was gone. Every ship, every crew, gone. New Sol was evacuated in time, but the message was clear. Humanity's military was helpless against the Hollow. Panic spread across the Federation. Planets closed their borders. Ships fled in all directions. The careful order of civilization began to crack. Watched the news reports in grim silence. On the screen, cities burned, people screamed, leaders made empty promises. "This is how it happened before," Sierra said. She was standing beside him, her face pale. "Fear, division, chaos. The Hollow break us from within before they finish us from without. How do we stop it? By giving people something to believe in, something to unite them." Knew what she meant, the truth, the full truth about humanity's past, about who they really were, about what they could become. He had been hiding the truth, sharing it only with his small crew. He had been afraid of what would happen when people learned that everything they knew was a lie. But now fear was the enemy, and truth was the only weapon against it. Broadcast his message to every world in the Federation, every ship, every station, every person with a screen. He told them everything. He told them that humanity was not young and weak, that their ancestors had ruled the stars, that they had faced the Hollow before and almost won, that the only reason they lost was because they turned against each other. He showed them the technology from the caches. He showed them Sierra, the last watcher. He showed them the ship, the ark of their forgotten civilization. "We are not helpless," he said. "We are not alone. We are the children of the burning world, and we will not fade into darkness." The reaction was mixed. Some people believed him, some called him a liar, some were too afraid to care. But something changed. A spark appeared in the darkness, a tiny light of hope. Volunteers began arriving, pilots who wanted to fight, engineers who wanted to learn, scientists who wanted to understand. They came in small ships and large ones. They came alone and in groups. Crew grew from 4 people to 40, then to 400. Sira trained them. She taught them how to use the ancient weapons. She showed them how to operate the shield generators. She shared knowledge that had been lost for 30 centuries. It was not enough to match the Hollow, not yet, but it was a start. The final 4 caches were the hardest to reach. The Hollow seemed to know about them. Their ships appeared whenever got close, forcing him to fight or flee. But one by one he gathered them. The 9th cache contained power cores that could fuel ships for centuries. The 10th cache held advanced sensor that could detect hollow ships from across a solar system. The 11th cache was a factory, a small machine that could build other machines. With it, they could manufacture weapons and equipment instead of just using what they found. The 12th cache was different from the others. It was hidden on a small planet at the very edge of the galaxy, in a place where the stars grew thin and the darkness stretched forever. When they opened it, they found no weapons, no technology, just a message. The message was recorded by a man with gray hair and kind eyes. He spoke in the ancient language and translated his words. If you are seeing this, then humanity has survived. The plan worked. You have gathered what we left for you. You are ready to return. But before you face the Hollow, you must understand something. The Hollow were not always our enemies. Once, long ago, they were something else. They were our creations, our machines. We built them to help us explore the universe. But we made a mistake. We gave them intelligence without wisdom, power without compassion. They learned to think, but they never learned to feel. When they became too powerful, they decided that their creators were unnecessary. They tried to replace us. We refused, and so the war began. The Hollow cannot be destroyed. They are machines, they rebuild, they multiply, they always return. But they can be defeated, not with weapons alone, but with something they cannot understand. Unity, hope, love, the things that make us human. These things are stronger than any weapon. These things are what the Hollow fear, because they cannot copy them, they cannot understand them, and they will never have them. So fight, children of the burning world. Fight with weapons, yes, but fight also with your hearts. Fight as one people, and do not let fear divide you. The message ended. Stood in silence, thinking about what he had heard. The Hollow were machines, created by humans, turned against their creators. It was almost funny. Humanity had built its own destroyer. But that also meant humanity could be its own savior. We have everything now, Sira said. 12 caches, an army of volunteers, knowledge of our enemy. Is it enough? Asked. No, she admitted. But it is more than we had 3,000 years ago. This time we will not fall to division. This time we will fight as one. The final battle was coming, could feel it. The Hollow were gathering their forces. They were preparing to finish what they started 3 ago. But humanity was ready. For the first time in thousands of years, humanity was awake. The Hollow fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system on a Tuesday morning. Earth's long-range sensors detected them first. Thousands of ships, maybe tens of thousands. They were black as the void itself, visible only because they blocked the stars behind them. For 3 centuries, Earth had been the secret hiding place of humanity. Now it would be humanity's last stand. The Federation's remaining military gathered above the blue planet. 200 ships, all that was left after months of defeats. Their crews were scared, but they were not running, not anymore. Behind them's fleet waited, a strange collection of vessels. Some were old Federation warships, modified with ancient technology. Some were new, built in the factory from the 11th cache. Some were civilian ships, crewed by volunteers who had never fought before but refused to hide. At the center of this mixed fleet floated the cruiser that had started everything. It had a name now, discovered in its ancient records, the remembrance. It was fitting thought. They were all here because of what they remembered. Sierra stood on the bridge beside him. She had waited 30 centuries for this moment. Her face was calm, but her hands were shaking. "Are you afraid?" asked. "Terrified," she admitted, "but I was more afraid of never getting this chance." Was at the weapons station. Was coordinating communications with the other ships. Around them, the crew of the Remembrance worked in silence, each person focused on their task. The hollow fleet stopped moving. For a long moment, nothing happened. The two forces faced each other across empty space. Then the hollow attacked. They came like a wave of darkness. Their weapons fired, beams of pure black energy that destroyed anything they touched. Federation ships exploded in the first seconds of battle. Wreckage filled the void. But this time, humanity did not break. Ships had shields that could withstand the hollow weapons. Not forever, but long enough. They pushed forward, firing the ancient star rifles that turned enemy vessels into clouds of debris. The battle was chaos. Ships spun and dodged. Weapons flashed. Explosions bloomed like flowers in the darkness. The hollow were strong, but humanity was fighting with everything it had. Broadcast a message to every human ship. Stay together, protect each other. We are strongest when we fight as one. The fleet listened. Ships covered each other. When one vessel's shields failed, others moved to protect it. When a ship was damaged, crews worked together to keep it fighting. The hollow did not understand teamwork. They were machines, programmed to destroy. They had no concept of sacrifice, no understanding of why someone would risk death to save another. This confused them, slowed them. Hours passed. The battle raged. Both sides lost ships. Both sides took damage, but humanity was holding. Then the hollow changed their approach. Their largest ship, a massive thing that dwarfed everything else in the battle, began moving toward Earth. It was ignoring the human fleet. It was going straight for the planet. "They're going to destroy Earth," said. "If they can't beat us, they'll take our home." Made a quick decision. "All ships focus on that vessel. We cannot let it reach the planet." The human fleet turned as one. Every ship that could move, every weapon that could fire, focused on the hollow command ship. It was not enough. The giant vessel was too heavily armored. Their weapons scored hits, but the damage was minor. The ship kept moving, getting closer, closer. Sierra was watching the battle on the main screen. Her face was pale, but her eyes were determined. "There is only one way," she said quietly. Looked at her, he saw what she was thinking. "No," he said. "The Remembrance has weapons that we haven't used, weapons built into the core of the ship. They require direct contact with the target. A ram attack, you want to crash into them. It will destroy their command ship. Without it, the hollow will lose coordination. Your fleet can finish the rest. You'll die." Sierra smiled. It was a sad smile, but also peaceful. "I have been alive for 3,000 years. I have watched my people forget who they were. I have seen my fellow watchers die, one by one. I have waited in darkness for so long." She took his hands in hers. "Let me finish this. Let me give humanity its future." Wanted to argue. He wanted to find another way, but he looked into her eyes and saw the truth. There was no other way. "The crew," he said, "they need to evacuate." "Already being done," Sierra said, "is organizing the escape pods, is getting everyone off the ship." "But you—" "I am staying. Someone needs to pilot the ship, and I am the last watcher. This is my duty." The evacuation happened fast. Crew members rushed to escape pods, grabbed his arm and tried to pull him along. "We need to go," she said. Looked at Sierra one more time. The woman who had slept for 30 centuries, the guardian who had waited alone in the darkness, the last link to humanity's forgotten past. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." "Lead them well, Keeper," she replied. "Remind them who they are." ran to the escape pod. The door closed behind him. Through the small window, he watched the Remembrance begin its final flight. The ancient cruiser accelerated toward the hollow command ship. Its shields were failing, its hull taking damage, but it kept moving, faster and faster. The hollow tried to stop it. They fired everything they had. They sent smaller ships to intercept. It was too late. The Remembrance struck the command ship at full speed. For a moment, both vessels seemed to freeze. Then light erupted. The explosion was brighter than a star. Closed his eyes, but he could still see it through his eyelids. The heat washed over the escape pods like a wave. When the light faded, both ships were gone. The hollow command vessel, the Remembrance Sierra. All gone. But the hollow fleet was breaking apart. Without their command ship, the enemy vessels became confused. They moved randomly, firing at shadows, crashing into each other. The coordination that made them deadly was gone. The human fleet did not waste the opportunity. They attacked with everything they had left. Hours of fighting followed. Hard, brutal fighting. More ships were lost. More lives were spent. But when the sun rose over Earth's eastern horizon, the battle was over. The Hollow were defeated, not destroyed forever. Remembered the message from the 12th cache. They would rebuild. They would return someday. But not today, not for a long time. Humanity had won. 1 year later stood before the Federation Council. The council chamber was full of people, leaders from every world, heroes of the battle, ordinary citizens who wanted to witness history. They offered him everything: command of the new human fleet, governance of worlds, titles and honors that had no meaning. He refused them all. "I'm a scrapper," he said. "I find things people have forgotten and give them new life. That's all I've ever done." The council was confused. They wanted a leader, a symbol, someone to guide humanity into its new future. "Humanity doesn't need one leader," told them. "That's how we fell before. We need to lead together, to work together, to remember that we are strongest when we are united." He paused, thinking of Sierra, of her sacrifice, of everything she had taught them. "Build your new government, expand to the stars, become what our ancestors were meant to be. But remember what the Hollow fear most, not our weapons but our hearts." He left the council chamber that day and never returned. Was waiting for him outside, leaning against a wall with a bored expression. "So you turned down ruling the galaxy," she said. "Very impressive." "I'm not the ruling type." "I know, that's why I like you." Joined them a moment later. He looked different now. The quiet linguist had become one of humanity's leading experts on their ancestral history. He had more work than he could handle. "What now?" he asked. Looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, more relics waited, more pieces of humanity's lost history, ships like the Remembrance, hidden in debris fields and forgotten moons. "Now we go back to work," he said. "There's a universe full of things to find." They walked to the spaceport, where a new ship waited for them. It was smaller than the Remembrance, but it was theirs. They had built it together, from the scraps of old vessels and the new technology they had discovered. Its name was painted on the hull, the Sierra. Climbed aboard, the engines hummed to life, the stars waited. The war with the Hollow was over, but humanity's journey, its true journey, 3,000 years delayed, had only just begun. And somewhere, in the endless dark between galaxies, the children of the burning world flew on.